Welcome to No Compromises, a peek into the mind of two old web devs who have seen some things. This is Joel.
And this is Aaron.
I had an interesting interaction with our mailing list, daily Laravel tip newsletter.
Mhm.
And you get nice feedback. You get the occasional person that tells you you're wrong. We've had a whole podcast episode on that. But so somebody asked me a question, and it really made me pause. And I thought it could be an interesting topic for us to discuss today, which is, hey, you write a lot of tips about testing. Like, why do you
Mm.
care about testing so much? And it's true. I do write about testing. I would say in an average month, maybe a third of my tips. Well, it might be a little high, but for sure once a week, I'm writing a tip that's about testing. And I do like the topic. And so I'm like, why do I like it so much? And Aaron, I want to ask you, why do we like testing so much?
Well, I don't know why you like it so much. I'm just about writing code, getting it out the door, ship, ship, ship.
Ship it.
Well, I mean, I have a one idea. It's probably
Okay.
not the same as what you're thinking, but
Good.
I think that there's something interesting about the fact that the way that we came up with programming, testing was around, but it wasn't easy. Like, for example, the first thing I read to learn about testing for PHP was actually a book on testing Java. And so, like, I had to kind of translate that into something for testing. So it was really difficult. And so, seeing how easy it is to test now makes me excited because, like, it used to be really hard. And I know that's an important part of
Okay.
our process. And so I think about all the times when I had to really work hard to test stuff, and now I have reasonably easy ways to spin things up to test it. I that's exciting to me, but
Okay.
that's unique to me, I think, or my generation.
Yeah. Well, is PHP is not the first language you ever programmed in, is it?
No, no.
Okay. Because when you were talking about first language, I'm thinking like literally, basic on the Atari computer. I'm
Hmm.
like, I don't even think there was like testing was you ran the program, right?
Yeah.
But no, that's not the reason I was thinking. And I actually had to think kind of hard about like why do I like this? Because it's undeniable. It's a topic I'm interested in. I would also say it's a topic I feel other people should know. Like I feel a motivation to teach it because it's beneficial, but then it's like, well, why is it beneficial? So
Hmm.
one reason I came up with, and this isn't like the complete reason, but one thing is like, well, we just the way our work is, we tend to join a bunch of different projects throughout a year. And we also tend to work in a bunch of different projects, even within the span of a month, right? So, you contrast that maybe with somebody who's inside a company, inside a team, and they're working on one thing day in, day out, right? So that just that's a little bit of context. Now, layer testing on top of that, when I'm jumping between projects or I'm coming into something new, if they have tests, I immediately feel less nervous about breaking something when I make a change, right? Like, hey, Joel, fix this bug, add this feature, blah blah blah. Um, I don't have a lot of context yet when I'm new to a project to like do satisfactory like regression testing through the UI or whatever. So I haven't seen like a robust test suite. Immediately makes me more confident. And to be honest, because we don't charge by the hour, it makes me more profitable, right? Because I don't have to spend a ton of extra time worrying about breaking something. Having the test makes me move faster, which makes a little more money in the bank account. So it's a selfish reason. But does any of that resonate with you, Aaron?
No. No,
Oh
I'm
boy.
just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think to some extent, yeah, I agree with a good portion of those. I
Yeah.
think that I think I agree mostly with that, but I would also one small caveat is like if you're on a team with a project you stay with like throughout the whole year, there's a good chance that you may not know other parts of the product or
Sure.
project.
Okay.
And so I don't think that experience that you're talking about coming into new things is unique to us. I think we probably do it more often. But a lot of times when you start a new gig, if you're there, so you think about
Yeah.
the average gig, maybe it's 3 to 5 years. That means every couple of years they're learning a brand new sort of thing. And when you get there, it's not figure out the whole app. It's usually like, here's your first ticket and do
Right.
it. And you hope that you fixed it, and
Yeah.
those tests will really help you know if you did or not.
Yeah. No, that's true. And yeah, so it's not unique to us. We just maybe are an extreme version of that because of how
Yeah.
frequently it happens. There's another reason though, because if I'm honest with myself, the interest with testing does predate, our current model of working with clients in a subscription basis. So that's not the whole answer. I think that's
Hmm.
maybe why it's accelerated, feeling the pain of a project that has no tests or, not to go on a tangent, but like has broken tests. Like that's the
Yeah, I
worst
think
of all.
this is your weakest reason. What's the next one?
Oh, it's my weakest reason? Boy, I better come
Yeah.
up with something good. All right. Well, no. So the other reason that I came up with was that I actually find it more productive. And not productive because I don't have to worry about breaking things, but in terms of building a feature, there are exceptions to this. But I'm thinking of one project in particular that's an API. And I was just working on the API. The front end didn't even exist yet, right? So it was
Hmm.
going to come later. And testing that manually, like with Postman or whatever your tool is a little tedious. And especially when it comes to refactoring, like because I think all
Right.
programmers can relate to this. You start building a feature, it's going, it's going, it's going. Then you hit like a piece of the requirement, and you're like, oh, actually, this other way would be better.
Change the field name or anything like that. Right.
Yeah,
You only
yeah,
have to
or
do it,
like this
in one
relationship should be
project.
different. Yeah, and so now, so maybe it's quicker going along without tests. But now, if you change some stuff, if you care about not breaking what you just built, you'd have to go back and like retest all that stuff again. So just kind of leaving these breadcrumb trails of feature tests, and they don't take a lot of time to write either. And I think that's maybe part of my enthusiasm too is experience with the topic because I've crossed that initial learning curve where it does slow you down. Like it is more
Mhm.
work and you have to figure out like, well, how do I test this? How do I test that? Why does this test flake out sometimes? But once you get past that hump, you can move pretty quick writing tests. And frankly, a lot of tests are fairly repetitive. Like the tests you use to test one CRUD controller are going to look very similar to the ones to test another CRUD controller, with some differences, maybe around business logic validation. So I think that's another reason for me. I don't know if it's a stronger reason in your eyes than my last one, but I do feel it makes me more productive in the whole, maybe not in the moment, but in the whole on a project.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that there's two different ways that we think as developers. And that question about whether that, why are we so excited about testing may show that there's a little lack of understanding, maybe that there's two different ways you think. And the two different ways you think is the overall sort of understanding the project or product. And then you have the day to day work or the daily or the
Mhm.
small little nugget of stuff. And if you're not as experienced, pumping out code, you might think that those are the same sort of person. Or those, that's the same person. You're the same person, but those are two different ways that you have to structure your brain.
Yeah.
And so that's another reason why too, when we have these meetings, when people say, "Oh, it's horrible because it stops us from working." Really, those meetings are usually a different type of thinking. And so the reason why it's also stressful is because you're changing your perspective. And so the
Right.
reason I bring that up is because tests help you componentize your code a lot better into smaller chunks too. If you have to think about each little block of code and how you might test that to make sure it's accurate, not
Mhm.
the whole entire project, but just your small little area,
Right.
it's you write those tests and then you start to write better and smaller composable code and just better quality. And so that's the sort of area that I lean on as tests have immeasurably improved the quality of my code.
That is probably like one of the more classic reasons, and I thought about that because you're right. You're less likely to write that 1,500 line controller action if you're writing tests for it. Like
Hmm.
it just because that would be a bear to write reasonable test coverage for. So
Right.
it does force you to think about like boundaries between services and things like that. Even if you're not doing TDD, I know TDD proponents will
Test driven development.
test driven development will
Yeah.
shape the design of your code better. We don't strictly practice that, but I agree with you 100%. I think is that the strongest reason for you, Aaron? Is your reason the right one?
it's cliche because it's the answer everyone gives, but it's
Right.
true
It is true.
because it does happen. So
Yeah.
yeah, my answer is always best and right. I don't know why you even question that. There's a phrase that people use. I mean, there's many, but there's a phrase that just drives me bananas, just grinds my gears, and that is follow my lead.
Okay. There's a million things I thought you were going to say, and that was not one of them.
Yeah, I hate when people are like, oh, like especially on like TV shows or something, like there's some sort of clever thing happening, and they look, one person looks to the other person, they're like, follow my lead, and then it's always like a joke, like, what are you gonna do? But why don't you just say what you're gonna do? Like, hey, real quick, I'm gonna pretend to be a waiter, do the same thing, or we're gonna, I don't know, steal this painting, do that act not inconspicuous, not follow my lead. By the way, that means figure it out and also do the same thing, which is not your normal thing of doing. So do two things to my just one thing, which is probably difficult already, which is probably, I don't know, stealing a jewel.
Those are some interesting scenarios, like stealing and being a waiter. Like, is this a crime show we're watching, or is this a comedy? Like, what's happening?
I
Follow
think
my
maybe
lead. I
I've
was
watched,
thinking like CSI or something. They're about to like storm a room.
I've been
But
watching too
then,
many episodes of Alias.
yeah, okay, that paints a picture. All right. Um, you have set yourself up though now for people to come up to you and be like, Aaron, follow my lead.
Oh, now you know why I don't go anywhere. So are you ready to be an adult and test your project?
Well, that's something we can help with. We have a lot of experience working with teams to get started testing, but just head over to masteringlaravel.io and sign up for the newsletter to start getting those testing tips.